And the Oscar goes to Anora. Sean Baker!
Sean Baker's Anora just won 5 Oscars at the 2025 Academy Awards. Baker himself won 4 of these 5 Oscars, which is tied with Walt Disney for the most Oscars ever won in a single night for the same film, which is pretty crazy. The film won its 5 Oscars for Best Original Screenplay, Best Achievement in Editing, Best Achievement for Directing, Best Actress, and Best Picture. Wow. Not only that, the film won the Palme d'Or at the 2024 Cannes Film Festival. Just in case you didn't know, the Palme d'Or is considered the most prestigious award in film, and it won that. Fellow Best Picture nominees Emilia Perez and The Substance also won awards at the 2024 Cannes Film Festival, including Best Actress and Best Screenplay, respectively. But records aside, this film won Best Picture, and it's an independent $6 million budget film. $6 million sounds like a lot of money, and it is, and I think even for an independent film it is, but compared to a Hollywood film, that's absolutely nothing. Just for comparison, Anora had the lowest budget of all the Best Picture nominees. The lowest being Anora with $6 million, which is followed by I'm Still Here with a budget of $8.5 million, The Brutalist at $10 million, The Substance at $17.5 million, Conclave at $20 million, Nickel Boys at $23 million, Emilia Perez at $26 million, A Complete Unknown at $70 million, Wicked at $150 million, and Dune Part 2 at $190 million. So having broken all these records and beating out all these celebrated films, you probably think that Anora is just an absolute masterpiece and is the best film of 2024. And while all that is like really subjective, let's find out. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about Anora at the Oscars, and specifically the award it won for Best Screenplay. And I'm going to tell you what the film is really about, try to explain it to you, because if you've seen it, you would know that it's a very open-ended film. So I'm going to share with you my interpretation of the ending and just of what I think Baker was trying to say. I'm going to specifically be talking about the film's script and the screenplay. So really, in essence, the story. And I'm also going to be sharing some interesting facts about how Anora compares to other Best Picture nominees. It's actually really surprising, so stay tuned for that.
Konya, be a fucking man and talk to me!
Okay, so a little disclaimer. Now, I've seen Anora twice, but before I get into my interpretation of it, I should tell you, like, do not watch this film with your family. I made that mistake of the first time I watched it with my entire family and my girlfriend, and it was kind of awkward, you know, to do. The trailer and the Amazon summary are really misleading. The Amazon synopsis explicitly says, Anora, a young woman from Brooklyn, gets her chance at a Cinderella story when she meets and impulsively marries the son of an oligarch. Once the news reaches Russia, her fairy tale is threatened as the parents set out for New York to get the marriage annulled. Yeah, I wouldn't quite put it that way. First off, it says Anora, a young woman from Brooklyn. You're not supposed to know that her name is Anora until like halfway through the film, so that itself is kind of spoiling a little bit of the surprise in the story and the mystery to why maybe it's called Anora. And also to say a young woman from Brooklyn, that's very vague, and I would get a little more specific describing her. I would say a stripper from Brooklyn, because that's what she is, but you wouldn't get any of that from reading this synopsis. They also use words like Cinderella story and fairy tale, which makes the film sound a lot more innocent than it really is, but it's really not an innocent movie, if I'm being honest. There's a lot of sex and a lot of nudity, and my mom like walked out of the room. We were all watching it together because it was just so weird for her to watch with the family. But you know, the rest of us gutted through it. Anyway, just pretty misleading word choice in the way it was marketed. Also, the film was marketed by saying a love story by Sean Baker. This isn't a love story. So now, before I really get into my interpretation of the film, I would advise watching the movie before, because one, I'm gonna be spoiling some things, and two, you'll be able to understand the scenes that I'm referencing had you seen this film. So if you don't care about spoilers or any of that, please continue watching the video. Either way, I want you to come back to watch the video, so please come back and watch the video. Okay, so if you've seen the film, you've seen the film. You know that it's a rather open ending. It's kind of unclear, and you probably felt a little bit of like a roller coaster ride throughout the film. It starts out very happy with a song called Greatest Day, and it's a very upbeat, hopeful sounding song. The kind of song that I feel like a person like Anora would listen to. It's got that like young energy vibe and just very optimistic. So we start out, you know, like happy in the film, and then, you know, we go out, things get crazy, and then it kind of just starts to get kind of depressing. Not that it's anticlimactic, but it just gets kind of sadder in terms of the energy. And, you know, the film ends slow and very down. But, you know, I think this attitude and this shape that the film takes in terms of its mood is really reflective of the mood that Annie has as a character throughout the story. So I think it's fitting in that sense. When we meet Annie, we get to know her situation. She's a stripper. She probably makes good money doing it. She is rather disrespectful to older people, and we really see how disrespectful she is by the way that she treats the character Igor. She's just like really mean. But anyway, you know, yeah, we meet her in this state. She seems to get everything that she ever wanted pretty early in the film. She marries Vanya, just very impulsively, very spontaneously. Then she loses all of it. He's a billionaire. She has the lifestyle that she dreamed of, and then she just loses it all. So then the film ends with her really having what she had to start the film with. The only thing that's happened between the beginning and the end is what she could have had and maybe could have kept, and was that glimpse of her dream that she just got a taste of. And that's why it feels depressing, is because, yeah, she started as a stripper, living in this house with a roommate. She ends the film probably working back as a stripper, but back at the same house that she lived at, and the thing that has changed is that she had an experience that really hurt her, but I think she really learned a lesson. So anyway, that's all kind of really surface level stuff. So now I want to really dive into the interpretation of the story and what I think Baker is trying to say. So I think that he is really trying to show a generational divide. And I think the spine of this story is that all of the younger characters do not think about the consequences of their actions. And all the older characters have to deal with the consequences of the younger characters' actions. That's what I picked up mostly in the movie. That was like the biggest thing that I saw. If the movie is a critique on society or generations in any way, that is how I would put it. Again, I've seen the movie twice, and I think with this perspective, especially the second time I watched it, I couldn't unsee it in the dialogue of all the younger characters. Literally everything a younger person says, you just see it. You see this disregard and disrespect that they have for their elders.
Literally, I just fuck around here. The boss is old as fuck, and he's like blind and deaf. He can't even fucking hear us right now. Helen Keller ass bitch.
Like, for example, like at the very beginning, we're like in a changing room at the strip club, and one of the strippers is talking about her clients, and she's saying like, he's 40. He's practically like geriatric.
Dude, he's 40. He's literally geriatric.
No, I know.
So just there, just like little subtle things like that, they're scattered throughout the whole film. When we're kind of like going on this like manhunt for Vanya, first place that they go to is like the old candy shop, and there's Vanya's like younger Russian friends work there, and Annie and the Armenian guys and Igor are trying to get one of Vanya's friends at the candy shop to call Vanya, and the Armenian guy with the long hair, Garnick, I think his name is. He said, if one of you doesn't get Vanya on the line right now, blah blah blah.
Get Ivan on the line now.
And then like the kids are like, on the line, are you serious? And they're just like challenging them, they're not being cooperative at all. And what ends up happening is Igor destroys the candy shop. And then the young like Russian guy there says like, oh, I'm so you know, he didn't think through the consequences of his actions. And then the person that has to deal with it is the candy shop owner, who is a really old guy.
What the hell?
And it just shows he has to deal with those consequences because the younger characters didn't think through their own actions. And there's like a scene that I love with Toros, or how do you say his name, Taraz. They're like in a restaurant, and he's he goes to a booth with like young Armenian guys, and he's saying like, have you seen this guy? Have you seen this guy? The guys like make fun of him and laugh, and then Taraz just rants, and he's like, that's the problem with you guys, like your generation, I don't have any values. Like, I've been working since I was 16 years old. Your generation is just TikTok, Instagram, TikTok, Instagram, TikTok, Instagram. I love that part. But yeah, I think the older characters are really exemplified through Taraz and Vanya's parents. They're the ones that have to deal with the consequences of Vanya's actions. And Vanya really, his life isn't gonna change because of it. Like, he's just gonna get, you know, reprimanded, like very temporarily. But for someone like Taraz, like, there was stuff at stake for him. Like, he missed his child or grandchild's like baptism. He had to leave during the middle of it. He even says like, I had to leave my family's baptism. Like, my family's never gonna talk to me again. You know, like, he has a family he needs to take care of. There is stuff that is at stake for him. And Vanya's just not really grateful, you know, through his actions.
And thank you for making my last trip to America so fun.
Yeah, you had fun.
Yeah. Let's go.
I will say though, Igor, he ends up becoming a really important character at the end of the movie. And honestly, at first, it kind of just came out of nowhere. But anyway, Igor does become an important character because I think he is the bridge between the younger generation and the older generation. He's not as young as Annie and Vanya and all their friends, and he's not as old as Taraz and Vanya's parents. He's right in between. And I'm telling you, it's not an accident that Sean Baker intentionally wrote in the script that Igor turns 30 years old during this time. He specifies the age, 30 years old, which really confirms that he is in that sweet spot between, you know, 20s and 40s. And as a character, he kind of acts as someone in between them. Like, he cooperates with Taraz and Vanya's parents because, like them, he has stuff at stake, he has to make money, but he's more hopeful than them, and in that sense, he is more similar to the younger generation. He says to Annie quite a few times, like, everything will be okay, you know, and he's really just a gentleman. And he puts up with a lot. So I think he's just kind of that bridge character between the generations. And Annie becomes more like him. She becomes closer to that type of person by the end of the film, and it's really exemplified because she's literally embraced in his arms in the final image of the film. And I think that that is symbolizing that she is now being embraced and welcomed into this new phase of life, which is really a more mature young adult and a more respectful person, and just not so much a kid anymore. You know, she's crying when she's in his arms when the film cuts to black. And I think that her crying here is really just showing that she is sorry for who she was and the way she acted. And she definitely like learned a lesson through this experience. So she started out one way in the film, and she does end actually in her same situation, but she is a changed person for it because of this experience. In a way, I feel like it's a coming-of-age film. There's also where it's kind of like an adventure story when they're on like this treasure hunt for Vanya. So yeah, there are some genre changes, and there is a roller coaster ride. And Sean Baker used that word explicitly, roller coaster. He wanted to take the audience on a ride like that, and I think he succeeded in that. So anyway, it's a pretty interesting story. I don't want to overhype it. Obviously, it's getting a lot of hype right now because of the awards it's won. And if you go into watching the movie with some really high expectations, I think you might be kind of disappointed. So anyway, why did this $6 million indie film win Best Picture and beat all these other films? Well, first off, it is a $6 million film, but it really looks like it's more than $6 million. And I think it's because the producers were very economical with their production. Producer Alex Coco has said, "We work very small. In a lot of cases, we have permission, but we don't have a permit. We're able to do this very stealthy." So I think that's probably a huge part of film and production budgets, is having a permit to film on certain locations, and there are quite a lot of locations here. I know production was 37 days. 10 days were filmed doing the like abduction scene in the mansion, just the abduction scene where Annie's kind of kidnapped and stuff, and they spent 3 weeks in that mansion. Probably wasn't cheap. And also there is a Vegas sequence, and being from Vegas, I happen to know the casino and hotel that they were filming at. They filmed in the Palms, and the suite that they filmed at is called the Empathy Suite at the Palms. And the Empathy Suite is the most expensive hotel suite in the entire world. It's on average about $100,000 a night. So yeah, that definitely took up some of the budget, like 1/60th of the budget, but still, that's not a cheap thing. And they probably filmed it, I'd imagine they filmed all those scenes in one night, maybe two, but they would have had to pay 200 grand for that. Unless they got some kind of deal. Yeah, that's pretty crazy. So another way I think the film saved money was they didn't use any big stars. Mikey Madison was probably the biggest star in it, but she wasn't a huge name. I think after this film, she's gonna be a star. But, you know, for example, Amelia Perez used Selena Gomez. The Brutalist used Adrian Brody. The Substance used Demi Moore and Margaret Qualley and Dennis Quaid, so those actors could not have been cheap. And those films were pretty low budget as well, but I'd imagine a lot of that went to the stars of the film. Selena Gomez, probably not cheap. Adrian Brody, probably not cheap. And then 3 big stars in The Substance, definitely not cheap, but still pretty low budgets. So yeah, that's another way this film definitely kept it pretty, like, you know, on the down low with the budget. And you know, The Substance didn't really look very expensive to make, but having 3 stars like that in the film definitely bumped up the budget. So despite Anora's small budget of $6 million, the film as of right now has grossed about $41 million, which means it has profited about 7 times what the budget was. So I think that's pretty good, like 7 times your budget. That's pretty good. But even though it has grossed 7 times its budget, Anora is the second lowest grossing Best Picture winner of all time, which is pretty surprising. The only film that is a lower grossing Best Picture winner is Coda, which is the 2022 Best Picture winner. That film had a budget of $10 million and grossed about $2.2 million. And this is all adjusting for inflation. So Anora is the second lowest grossing Best Picture winner of all time. Right ahead of it is Nomadland, which grossed about $47 million. And that was the 2021 Best Picture winner. So I think it's kind of interesting that the 2021, 2022, and 2025 Best Picture winners happen to be the 3 lowest grossing Best Picture winners of all time. But on the contrary, last year's Best Picture winner of 2024, Oppenheimer, grossed over $1 billion, which makes it the 9th highest grossing Best Picture winner of all time. Crazy fact, the highest grossing Best Picture winner of all time is Gone with the Wind. And in today's money, it's like $10 billion, which is like insane. I think it's also the highest grossing movie of all time. So yeah, just absolutely insane. And Anora's fellow Best Picture nominees like Wicked and Dune Part 2 both grossed over $700 million, which is about 7 times more than what their budget was. Maybe even a little less. So Anora, for what its budget was, grossed more than these films. But I mean, I'm sure now it's gonna go up, but I just thought that was really interesting. And does this make Anora a bad film? No, it doesn't. I think a lot of like really artful, interesting films don't quite get the marketing that maybe they deserve, that other less artful films do get. But I think the biggest part of what makes a movie gross and profit is the way it's marketed. There probably isn't much better marketing than 5 Oscars and the Palme d'Or. That's the reason why I watched the movie, I have to say, is because of the Palme d'Or. But anyway, those are pretty much all my thoughts. Let me know in the comments if you thought Anora deserved all the awards that it got and deserves all the hype it's getting. Also, just share your thoughts about the film, about the Oscars, about other movies that you think should have won, whatever award. You know, Anora won quite a lot. So yeah, just let me know in the comments. Please be sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel and check out my other videos. I do more like deep breakdowns of films, so be sure to check those out. I'll link them somewhere on the screen. And yeah, thanks for watching, guys. I really appreciate it. Take care. Bye.